Hello friends, today we have with us CEO of Prasar Bharati, Mr. Shashi Shekhar. I'm a big fan of his achievements as he's completely turned around Prasar Bharati from a Sarkari organization to a highly professional organization. So Shashi sir, thanks for sparing time. Welcome to the discussion, sir.
Thank you for having me and for a very kind introduction where you vastly overstated what I've done. So, very happy to be here.
Sir, I was actually going through your profile, and initially you worked in Infosys for 10 years. And from 1997, when I saw you started working on innovations and digital innovations in that time when nobody was talking much about innovations. Then in 2013, you joined Niti Central, started working on data analytics, built India's biggest you can say electoral database and something of that sort. So your career is where you were always ahead of the curve, sir. Yeah? And now you are with Sarkari organization, government organization. So, sir, how this new system is treating you? So how difficult or how easy it is to work with government organizations? Sir?
Very interesting question. I think you're the first to use the phrase ahead of the curve. I think now with the Sarkari system, I'm flattening the curve. So let me just rewind back. You were talking about my career. Actually, my first job was a Sarkari job. Okay. So in '95, when I graduated from IIT Bombay as a chemical engineer, I came to Delhi. My first job was in Delhi with a consulting firm called Engineers India Limited. It's a public sector unit. Those days, we used to live in Gurgaon. Where practically it was barren land. Gurgaon was just about emerging as a urban center. And interestingly, AIL used to have an office on Parliament Street in what is known as the PTI building. And so in 2016, when I became a part-time member of the Prasar Bharati board, the Prasar Bharati board also was sitting in PTI building. So it was like, 20-year, the clock turned all the way around. And there I was back in the same Sarkari buildings that once I used to visit. So back then in '95, internet was just about making its presence felt in India. At IIT, we used to have access to the internet because of the ERNet. But then when I joined EIL, I realized that my entire batch was abroad, and I was one of the few who were who stayed back in India. And those days, email on the internet was only accessible either if you were at an IIT or an ISC through ERNet, or some of the R&D units used to have access to ERNet. So at EIL, the R&D unit was also incidentally in Gurgaon, in the same office building. And they used to have one machine, which was a DOS machine, which used to run an email client on UUCP. And one common ID, one common inbox for the entire office. So I got to know about that they have email here. So I shared it with my classmates. And then, of course, the entire batch was just abroad. So daily, I would get 50 to 60 emails on that common email box. And so the word got around that, there is a new trainee who has joined, who's getting 50 to 60 emails a day on the common email server. And so the general manager called me. So I was really scared. I thought, I'm in trouble. So he says, I heard you use the email a lot. I said, yeah, you know how to use the VI editor because it had a VI editor interface. I said, yes. He said, great, here is a floppy, go type these emails because he wanted to send emails. And so there I became a typist. So that's how my whole tech journey started, where I stopped being a chemical engineer and I started being more of a software engineer. So I set up one of the first rudimentary websites of EIL back then. And those days, the pollution around the Taj complex was a big issue. And EIL used to do the air quality monitoring. And so they needed access to a simulation software, which was available at the US EPA website, open source software. And nobody had a clue how to download it. So that is when we first discovered Mozilla, the web browser, and on a 14.4 kbps modem, over a week, we downloaded this simulation tool. So I ended up, learning a lot more on tech and software. So naturally, within a year, I had to quit my Sarkari job, and then that's when I joined Infosys, moved to Bangalore. So I was at Infosys for almost 16 years, most of it abroad, and worked in various diverse fields. And then, of course, after that came Niti Digital, where we did the digital campaign. We had India Votes, which was one of the largest open electoral databases for doing analysis. And then I joined the Prasar Bharati board as a part-time member in 2016, and then came here as a CEO in 2017. So to your question on how is the experience in the Sarkari environment, I think I'm one of the few lateral entrants who was
similar to me.
Where I've had to manage a setup where the entire hierarchy below you is permanent, regular government employees and so on. The other unique challenge about Prasar Bharati is the age profile, where I remember when I joined Infosys, and Mr. Narayan Murthy used to, in his speeches, mention it quite often that the average age at Infosys is in the 20s. Right? You go around the campus every here, the average age is in the 50s. So to go from that environment to this environment is a huge change. And so the challenges are many. I don't think I've turned around Prasar Bharati, though I would like for that to be said. I think we are still far away from that point. But what we have done is at least we've started the process. We've started the process of that turnaround. Its fruits will probably take a few years for us to really experience. When I came here, the entire decision making was paper based. I would get volumes of paper. At my entire career in Infosys, I don't recall ever having signed my name on any piece of paper. And here, in a day, I was doing like 40, 50 times. So that itself was a big shift. So one of the first things that we started was that, Prasar Bharati needed a modern IT setup. It needed a enterprise IT environment. So we got going on that. And thankfully, because we were able to do that and have a whole e-office system in place, that when the COVID-19 lockdown hit us, we were at least in a state where we could operate no matter where we were. I could do files sitting in the car. I could do files sitting at home, in the airport, wherever, because at least we had moved to a web-based decision-making system. And so that made a big difference. So it's work in progress. And, we have created a digital footprint, which is slowly, beginning to pay off. So the turnaround has begun, but it will take us a few years to get.
Very interesting, sir. So, sir, basically, as Chief Innovation Officer, I focus when I speak to leaders like you, on innovation, technology innovation, process innovation. So, sir, after you joined, because you have worked in, as I said, really cutting edge technologies or areas. So what kind of innovations you got into Prasar Bharati which were not there before?
Great question. So one of the innovations, let me use some simple ones which everyone can relate to before I get into the the more complex ones. Prasar Bharati is both Doordarshan and All India Radio. Doordarshan is television, All India Radio is Akashvani is all radio. And radio,
very limited scope for innovation that way.
Right. However, what we found was that radio was a unique strength for us. Because unlike TV, which is a very crowded space, in radio, we are the only player in several markets and in several medium. While FM has been opened up to private players, we are still the only player as far as medium wave is concerned. We are only the players as far as satellite radio is concerned and so on. But it's a very complex network, 400 plus stations, several languages, very complex. So one of the things that, one of the challenges that we face is that, let me take the case of commercial sports. right? The sports rights on television have been grabbed by all the private players at enormous amounts, IPL and ICC World Cup and so on. However, on the radio side, because we are the only player who is allowed to carry live sports, we have an advantage. So what we thought was, how do we take advantage of this unique opportunity that we have on radio? What we did is, historically you only heard radio commentary. So we said, what if we stick a camera into the radio studio and do a simulcast of the commentary while the match is going on? So during the ICC World Cup, we had 3 streams. We had the traditional audio stream of radio commentary. Then we had a digital stream of radio commentary where the live score would also be updated on YouTube. And we had a third stream which had a camera stuck into the studio. So you could see the commentators while they give the match commentary. And a small window where a sign language interpreter would interpret the commentary. So for the first time, the ICC World Cup was made accessible through sign language interpretation with the simulcast, where you could also see the commentators and then, of course, listen to the commentary. So this is one content innovation, new format that we had experimented. So that's one example of an innovation. The second example that I want to share, again, which takes radio to the digital world, is our app called News on Air. Now, the challenge with radio is that unless you're physically present in the footprint area, geographical area, where the service is accessible, there's no way for you to know what is on air, right? And we have a network where we have hundreds of services, hundreds of languages and services. So what we did is that we said, what if we put every one of these services digitally on this app? So it's the only app in the world which has more than 200 radio live streams. So you can listen to practically every radio station anywhere in India on this app. And you can choose the language and so on. So this has become a huge hit because now it has created a sort of bonding for a lot of people who may be migrants working abroad, working anywhere, who want to recall their hometown days, and today they can actually do that by through this app picking the station that they want to listen to. So News on Air is another interesting example of an innovation. So these are 2 things that have happened during my tenure. But one innovation which of course has its roots about a decade ago, but which has actually made a difference right now during COVID, is the DD Free Dish DTH platform. Because it is the only DTH platform operated by a broadcaster in the world, which is free to air, open. So you can buy any standard open set-top box and you can get these signals. You don't have to pay any monthly subscription, nothing. And because it has a install base of nearly 3.5 crore households, during COVID, when schools are closed, many people don't have access to internet or have exclusive access to a PC or a desktop at home. To be able to get tele-education, mass education going is possible in India today only because of DD Free Dish. And the Singapore Straits Times had an editorial last month where they were talking of the impact of COVID-19 on education. And it gave the example of 2 countries which have actually ensured that the school year is not wasted by leveraging the power of mass media, Thailand and India, in the context of DD Free Dish. So I think these are some few innovations that have made a difference over the last couple of years.
But sir, when you talk about DD Free Dish, there are a large number of channels which are widely viewed, are not there on that dish, sir. Although the viewership of DD Free Dish is very high. So whether Prasar Bharati is taking any efforts to ensure that some of the commercial channels are also available on DD Free Dish?
See, a model of, because it's a public platform, and there's a requirement to keep the platform, placement of channels on the platform through an open, transparent process. Today it happens through an e-auction. So unless a channel participates in the e-auction, there's no way I can ensure that it is available on the platform. However, many of the Hindi GEC channels are available. The popular Hindi news channels are available. In fact, many times people say that the public broadcaster is a mouthpiece of the government. And to them, I have this to say that you would show me one public broadcaster anywhere in the world who carries a platform and gives space to 20 of its competitors who give a whole diversity of opinion. We do that. Nobody else does that. So it's a wrong notion. And I think Swedish, the diversity of content, of course, there can be far more diversity because we only have a fraction of the 900 odd channels. But again, it's a question of capacity, satellite capacity. We are hopeful that ISRO will, give us more capacity soon when their new satellite is launched. And so we'll have more slots, and of course, we can expand the footprint of Swedish.
There is a lot of opportunity in artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics. You are also working with BARC, which does a lot of data analytics. And actually, which decides ranking of channels on weekly basis, which actually results in their revenue. So how confident or how accurate is this data, and what is the process, sir, which is used in BARC analysis?
The audience measurement in India, I think, has come a long way. For several years, the audience measurement
TRP.
in India, TRP or what used to be TRP, used to be through a company called TAM. And the reason it was flawed was because it was largely urban India that they were measuring, and they were just extrapolating it to all of India. And then that led into a lot of questions around the authenticity, the credibility, the reliability of audience measurement. Ultimately, the government had to intervene, and then BARC was set up in the early years of last decade, 2013, 2014. And they started measurement from 2015. Now the structure of BARC is an interesting structure. It has one set of stakeholders who are the primary shareholders or investors in BARC, which are the broadcasters, Prasar Bharati included, all the big broadcasters. Then there are also representatives of the media agencies, the AAAI, and the end user companies, ISA as well. Right? So it's a multi-stakeholder organization that is overseeing audience measurement. The methodology is still what was the technology some time back, which is panel-based measurement. So what BARC does is they do an annual survey. The annual survey establishes what the TV universe is like in India. So it establishes how many households have televisions, what kind of televisions is there, what kind of households are these from a socio-economic, demographic standpoint, and so on. What is the television penetration in various parts of India? So this becomes the reference model. And based on this model, then they place meters in a sample. That becomes a panel, basically. The sample currently is around, I think, 30 or 40K meters. And these are in various parts of India. And these meters basically monitor what you watch based on who is watching and so on. And the data that is collected from these meters is then fed into a statistical model. And then you have the weekly ratings that come out of that statistical model. So that's broadly the process. There are, of course, challenges.
Don't you think, sir, believe that currently with set-top box, we can actually go ahead and monitor viewing pattern of almost each and every house and do a data analytics on top of it?
Yeah. So in fact, I was just getting to that part. So the challenge with this kind of panel-based measurement is that it is only as good as your sample and your model, right? And a country which is as diverse as India, with so much of stratification and so much of differences in the way we consume products or media and so on, any model or any sample will always have a limitation, and this limitation becomes magnified when the sample size is small. So if you go to a genre like, let's say, English news, I mean, for the amount of decibel noise that it attracts, English news is one of the micro, probably a nano is the right word for the size of the sample. You compare Hindi news and English news, it's like, huge factor of difference, right? So in English news, because it is so small, the audience size, that even the smallest disruption, because of the non-linear effect of the modeling, it just manifests into a big difference in the ratings. And so that is a big challenge. And so we are actively, BARC board as well as the tech committee of BARC is actively looking at this issue in terms of how to make the algorithms more robust, what is the right policy approach, and so on. But that is still working within the limitations of the panel-based measurement. The other option is what you're talking about, which is census-wide measurement, which will work if everyone has a set-top box which is intelligent, which has the capability to do this kind of measurement and report it back through what is called return path data. Now, some of the bigger operators have this, like Tata Sky and so on. BARC has also entered into MOUs with some of them who are willing to share this data. Not everyone is willing to share this data.
But then whether it will be an invasion on privacy also, sir?
Absolutely. So there are all these things, right? One aspect is the individual privacy, right? Why should the BARC know what I'm watching, kind of at a personal level? Second is strategic or business wise, right? Why should the operator share this data? The third is the cost of it. What is the cost to the consumer? Because ultimately, if these set-top boxes are more intelligent, they're going to be more expensive and so on. Then the fourth big issue is free dish, because free dish, we don't even control the set-top box. So how do you solve that problem? So RPD is, so it's an active area of consideration. BARC at its level is looking at it. Even the regulator, TRAI, is looking at it. So various stakeholders are looking at it. But what is the roadmap? It's still not clear how easily can we get to census-wide audience measurement. At the same time, there are startups that are disrupting the space. So there is Zapper, which has come up with a ambient monitoring technology, which gets around a lot of these problems. So I think audience measurement is ripe for disruption. So BARC will have to innovate, and so it's on their radar. Then there are startups which are more nimble and more real time. So it is also a wake-up call to BARC that they have to speed this process up. So we have had, I think, new leadership there. So hopefully this process will speed up in the months to come.
So, sir, this interview will be watched by large number of technology students, large number of students who are in higher education sector, sir, because that is what I primarily focus through these leadership talks, sir. And one of the objective is to motivate them to identify new areas where they could venture into, or they could innovate, or they can take their career forward, sir. Currently, if you look at the media space, sir, large number of media organizations are struggling because they are not getting enough viewership, or the revenue model is not right. But large number of youngsters are keen on getting into media because the publicity or the glamour which is associated with it. So, sir, whether you would like to give some tips or suggestions to these youngsters who are very keen on getting into media sector. One is in front of camera, and maybe even behind camera, where the technology is involved.
Very pertinent question. Media as a space to build a career is very attractive, and I think India is unique, right? That we are the only billion people country in this planet which has creative freedom. The other billion people country cannot claim that, and we have the bragging rights at least on that. So a career in media is a stepping stone for a lot of people to express themselves creatively and make an impact. However, the media industry has gone through significant change thanks to the disruption of the internet, and traditional media business models are being disrupted as we speak. Every week, every day. So a career in media is not exactly what it used to be in the past. And so if you're a youngster who is aspiring for a future in the media space, I think the key thing is you have to be prepared. You have to prepare yourself for creative disruption right from day one, because nothing that you see today is a given and may not even exist a decade from now. A decade back, who thought YouTube would be so important? Right? I mean, I was just looking at my own videos of my kids in the early 2000s and realized that was on a regular camera, digital camera, and not on a camera phone. And that only happened subsequently in the late 2000s. So the pace of disruption is so huge. I mean, so fast that so you have to be prepared for that disruption. And the only way that can happen is you have to use social media creatively, create a personal brand around yourself. So no matter whether you're an intern starting off or whether you're an anchor, whether you're an RJ, whoever you are, I think in the media space, if you are looking at a long-term career, then it's very important to have a personal brand, and you have to be innovative. The line between technology and creativity is blurred. So it's not enough to say that I'm good at speaking, at presenting. No, you have to be savvy with technology. You have to know tools. You have to know mobile journalism. Gone are the days when 4 guys would go to a shoot. Now you can do it on your own with a mobile phone. You can edit it. You can probably make an entire video out of it. I think Abhay is a great example using this, right? So we are seeing this, happening across the world, where mobile journalism has disrupted the way documentaries are made, the way news is being reported, and so on. So you have to be hands-on with tools. You have to be hands-on with technology. You have to be very savvy with social media, because social media is a great brand amplifier. It can get your message across, and you get noticed by influencers. That also improves your personal brand. So if you're looking at a long-term career in media, I think all these elements are important. That you have to be innovative, you have to be creative, you have to be psychologically prepared for the constant disruption, because companies will get disrupted, jobs will not be the way they were always, and you will have to be more effective at how you use the gig economy, do freelancing, and so on, and be very savvy with technology and tools.
Sir, you rightly said that we need to evolve, we need to innovate, sir. As you are aware that Prime Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister is talking about startups. He's talking about $5 trillion economy, where innovation and entrepreneurship is going to be a very important tool. And we hope, and India is now emerging as world's third startup nation, sir. So, sir, if youngsters have startups, then how they can engage with Prasar Bharati? And as Prasar Bharati, whether you have any policy of engaging with startups, and if in which area?
Let me take each of these aspects, right? First is, what is the startup opportunity in this space itself? I think there's huge startup opportunity in this space for the simple reason that today there is hardly any native technology in broadcasting. Practically everything that we use in broadcasting is imported, and it's a very sorry state of affairs. So we have no choice but to innovate and develop the broadcast technology ecosystem in India.
So Atmanirbhar Bharat should start from here.
And I've been hammering this since 2017 in every public forum that we need Make in India for broadcasting. We are far too dependent on imports. So that's straight away an opportunity area for the broader broadcasting sector. More specifically for the public broadcaster. See, the public broadcaster is the only customer for a whole range of services and products, because the other private broadcasters are not into that, which is terrestrial broadcasting. So transmitters and a whole lot of gamut of things which are related to terrestrial broadcasting. Then we also do huge amount of live coverages, which again the private sector doesn't do on the scale that we do. Like you take a Republic Day parade, that's like 50 cameras live for several hours. So complex coverages of that nature. So there are a lot of unique things that the public broadcaster does, and these are also again an opportunity area for startups to develop technology in India and build a whole ecosystem there. And then of course the new age technologies, be it digital, be it artificial intelligence. I see a lot of scope for AI algorithms that the public broadcaster can benefit from. One simple problem for us is the number of languages. The diversity of India is so vast. All India Radio broadcasts in almost more than 100 languages and dialects. And so any AI-based tools that can allow us to amplify content once created in hundreds of languages and dialects, that would be a huge force multiplier for us. Similarly, our archives are a living memory of India's history, not just modern India from independence, but even pre-independent India. So to be able to mine these archives and draw content out and make it available again is another AI opportunity. Some of the historical recordings that we have are the Constituent Assembly debates, every Independence Day speech ever delivered, the first radio broadcast from Chennai by Dr. Rajagopalachari, and so on. So a lot of interesting, and then of course the biggest treasure house of Indian classical music, right? Every legend who's ever sung in Indian classical, their recordings are on India Radio, right? And so a lot of history in these archives. Again, AI tools that can mine these archives are a great opportunity area. And then the one big future technology that we are all hoping would take off is direct to mobile broadcasting. Today, you can listen to FM radio on your smartphones. What if you could receive your IPL finals through the broadcast frequencies on your smartphone? Then you will not have to worry about data plans. You will not have to worry about buffering. You don't have to worry about the CDN costs. All of that goes away if broadcasting directly to smartphones is possible. So that's another area where we are actively engaging. We have an MOU with IIT Kanpur. We are working with startups like Sankhya Labs out of Bangalore and so on. So this is a area that we think has potential in the future. So anyone who's working in this space, we'd be happy to collaborate with them. Unfortunately, the culture historically has been such that it is a very closed environment, very inward looking. So we are trying to break that mindset. So we become more open. So the MOU with IIT Kanpur was the first step. This collaboration with various startups is the second step. Hopefully we'll get to a point. I know we did the hackathon a couple of years back. Hopefully we'll open up our environment and there's a more structured way of collaborating and engaging with startups.
Okay, sir. So let's close down on this note, sir. Thanks for talking to us. Thanks for sparing time. We sincerely appreciate, sir.
Thank you.
Also, friends, I have done more than 30 leadership talk. Please see them on my Twitter handle, Abhay Jere. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Thank you very much.